Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Kurt Yazage's show again, and I'm broadcasting live from the new location in Austin. I still haven't quite figured out how I'm going to put things together as far as where I'm going to shoot, how that's all going to work out, but it's likely I'm going to come from this actual studio here. But I'm super stoked to be back. It's been a while. I know it's been a few weeks, just chaos with moving, and also, frankly, there's just like a bunch of stuff going on with the business that just kept me really jamming. But I'm also restructuring the strategy on the kind of content I want to put out. And so the whole combination of everything from the move to business that's been kind of chaotic to what I want the strategy of this channel and all the content that I put out to kind of work in synergy is what's kind of put me on the sidelines for a couple of weeks now. But I'm happy to say that I really have some great stuff that I want to be putting out, and I'm looking forward to really working through getting that stuff out and hitting our stride for the next many episodes. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. So I thought it would be valuable to talk about making a move across country. It's something I just did. It's something that I think a lot of people can benefit from. And I want to talk a bit about the points. So if you follow my episodes earlier, I did talk about moving from Seattle to New York and in my thinking behind moving to Austin. And the high level was that the personal growth, the transformation you experience, the things that you get from making a move that's so substantial are life-changing. They separate you from your environment, they separate you from your support system, they force you to sort of sink or swim and learn to develop a new life. And on top of that, that's not the main reason to move, but on top of that, I would say that more importantly, you are moving ideally to places where you can meet and connect with people that are going to inspire you, that are going to be mentors for you. I know personally, my move here, I have ran into more entrepreneurs that are highly successful in my building alone than I've probably met in the last 3 years living in the office in the home that I had over in Seattle. And part of that could have been changed by just making some transitions in Seattle to more conducive, productive environments. But a big piece of it is just being in a city where people want to live, where people are more kind of hip and excited about. And in Austin, being in the South versus Seattle, where it's a little bit more corporate and more chill, I think there's just a huge pull to Austin for entrepreneurs in general. And certainly it seems to be the case with internet marketers. I can't speak for sure because it's more anecdotal than quantitative actual data, but certainly in my experience, there's a lot of cool young entrepreneurial types down here. So what did I want to talk about in this move? Well, I really wanted to get into the mechanics of it because making a big move can be daunting. And in my experience, I was coming from a 3-bedroom house and moving into a 2-bedroom apartment, and there's just a lot of changes that go into making that transition. So it goes down to everything from like, how do you pick what you want to actually move, to how are you going to actually execute the move, to the finest decisions of like, who's going to move your stuff and how are you going to do all that. It's a lot of stuff to decide. So I think the first step initially is just to get a spreadsheet going or some sort of list where you can either have your assistant or you yourself can start going through and itemizing what your options are. So for me, when I was going through the move, I looked at moving companies that were end to end. Basically, they come into your house, they pack everything you tell them to pack, they box it up, they load it into their own truck, they drive it down, they arrive at the property that you're going to move into, and then they carry it all up and basically bring you the boxes and all the stuff so you can then unpack and basically put your stuff where you want it to go. That's the most expensive. It's also the most full service option. We'll talk more about why I think that might be the best option for the majority of people. But for me, I also looked at a few other options. There's a company called Pods, and what they do is they drop a pod off, and they drop it off at your residence. And this pod is a big can container where you can then load it up, and then they'll ship it. It fits on a truck, and they'll haul it down wherever you need it to go. And in this case, the nice thing about Pods is if you don't know if you're going to be putting all your stuff somewhere, like you don't have a storage option, you can actually just keep your pod stored at their location as a storage. It's essentially a storage unit that you fill that's mobile, that gets relocated to your location, and then you don't have to move your stuff out of the moving truck into an actual storage. You just pay the monthly subscription or fee for the actual pod. So that was another option that I'd seen people do before, and I looked into myself. The other option that actually my buddy who owns a moving company in the Seattle area recommended, which I ended up going with, is called ABF Freight U-Pack. And what they do is they're a trucking company, and they actually utilize the extra space on the trucking trailers, these 24-foot trailers, and they allow you to fill up as much as you need, and then they charge you per linear foot on an actual trailer that's like an 8x8 that expands out, and they'll measure it out. But they basically drive up with a trucker, just like an 18-wheel truck, and they pull up alongside your house for a window of time. It can be anywhere from a couple days to just a few hours. In my case, it was a few hours because I'm on a busy street. And they'll park the truck, and then you load it up ramp, just like if you were doing a moving truck or loading a pod, and you fill the things up there, and you try to pack it as tight as you can, because the more space you end up using, the more the cost for the move is going to be. And once you do that, they drive it down, and their ETAs are typically 4 to 8 business days from, for example, going 2,200 miles Seattle to Austin. That is cheaper than movers because you're basically not paying for the movers, you're just paying for the truck and the transportation. The last thing you can do is you can actually end up renting a U-Haul or a Penske truck or a budget truck and driving down yourself. And this may make sense. I think it makes sense for shorter trips, but if you're doing a long trip, especially if you're busy, it's probably not going to be the best option for you. One, you got to factor in gas costs, the time it takes to drive a fucking truck, the actual like driving process, and then lodging and eating and all that stuff. It's just not like a very productive use of most people's time to take a U-Haul and drive it across the country. When you look at raw costs of moving, it can be deceptive because the moving process is so time consuming that you don't realize that if you're going to do any part of the move, it's going to be a few hours at least for that sort of stage to multiple days. In my case, it took me several weeks to kind of go through all the things in my house and then really just work through them all. And then on top of that, like packing, wrapping, it's a time consuming process. The other thing you got to factor in is if you really know what you're taking or not. In my case, one of the biggest factors in determining that I wasn't going to have someone just come do all this moving for me was I didn't know what I was going to take. I had a 3-bedroom house. I had multiple roommates. 3 different times I had different people living in the house. So we collected a lot of stuff in this 2,500 square foot home that I just needed to get rid of. I just needed to sift through. And so I had to go through a lot of that stuff myself and then just figure out what to move and what not to move. Not to mention there was an office that we had opened down in the bottom level with all kinds of boxes and monitors and cables and just random knickknacks of things that we had accumulated from the business, just buying things and working through building our own server solution in that office. So there was so much that I needed to go through on the house that I chose to kind of go through it. It was a process. But what I would say is that in general, what I went with is I went with U-Pack. I ended up getting a trailer. instilling friends and family and some coworkers and some moving companies. I hired a professional set of movers to come load the truck because I had no idea how to do that. Highly would recommend that if you go with U-Pack, no matter what you do. And then I went through all the stuff, and with my mom and like my dad and my brother and family and friends, was able to sort of slowly pack over a couple weeks the whole house and then get it ready. And then I had the movers wrap the couches and the bigger things like the dressers, and overall it was really successful. We got most of the stuff packed properly. Very few things got dented, damaged on the move process, thanks to the good packing job that was done by both the pro movers when they packed the big items, and then the family and myself going through everything else. When it was all said and done, looking back at this, there's a few things that I would highly recommend that you take a look at when making a major move, and here they are. One, when you're loading the truck, the trailer, have the movers coming and getting everything, make sure you spend at least 5 to 10 minutes just doing a walkthrough and asking yourself, like, is there anything I'm forgetting? Is there anything we need to grab? Is there anything that I'm not taking? In my case, I forgot like a bed frame, and it cost me like $400, and it annoyed me because it was as simple as just remembering it. Because I looked at it after I forgot it, literally a few hours later after the truck was gone, I was like, I need to bring that. There was no way I was going to get it to where it needed to go. It was just a big, long, awkward item. Shipping it down would have cost a few $100 alone, and it just made more sense to buy a brand new one. So that's something I highly recommend. Go through your stuff, walk through it, just check it out. Number 2, use the move as an opportunity to purge a lot of stuff. I got this tip from Eben Pagan. He's a great internet marketing mind and business entrepreneur. And one of the biggest things he talks about in his wealth programs is how successful people are not hoarders. Most of the successful people don't have a lot of stuff. They don't keep stuff. They look to kind of pare down, get rid of stuff, and really focus in on having like a few things, whether it's items you own, relationships you have. It's all about like higher quality stuff and less of it. So for me, I used the move as a huge opportunity over the course of 3 years to just purge out and get rid of like shirts in my dresser I hadn't even worn in a year, dress stuff, just getting rid of the majority of stuff that I knew I wasn't gonna wear. So clothes, kitchen items, office items, just anything and everything that you know you're not gonna need or you just aren't using in the last several months to year, like toss it. So I use that as an opportunity to get rid of stuff, and it's a great liberating feeling being able to kind of toss out things. That kind of summarizes a lot of what I experienced with the move. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of steps that go into the process. Looking back though, in hindsight, as I was going through the move process, there were many moments where I really was kicking myself for going with the U-Pack option versus hiring movers. In the future, if I was going to make a move this large and I had stuff going on, I would strongly consider just hiring movers. The $2,000-$3,000 I saved on not hiring the movers was lost in things that happened in my company, and the time that it took for people in my company to help me move, and the time it took me away from focusing on the bigger projects. That opportunity cost was at least 2, probably 3 times the amount of cost. It took me several weeks and quite a bit of time and energy to really just get back and reestablished. So it was a great learning experience, but I would highly recommend, unless you're on an insane budget and you just have no way to generate income, that you just consider making that move. So in the sense of hiring actual pro movers, don't get away from doing most of the moving yourself. As much as you can, hire people to do it, shop around, look at reputations online. I think moving.org was a website I went to, but hit me up if you have questions. But overall, it's done. I'm glad it happened. I learned a lot from the experience, and moving forward, I have some great things to do. So I hope you found that helpful. I know for me, it was a great learning experience going through the whole moving process, and I really have been working hard to kind of get things back on track, but I feel like I'm finally kind of catching my stride here again a month later. So thanks again for your support. I really appreciate you watching these, and letting me know what you think. Hit the like, comment, subscribe. And if you have feedback or you have experience moving, I'd love to hear it. So send us a note. I'm putting this out on the newsletter as well as on the blog, kind of my sort of main takeaways and points. So looking forward to sharing. Talk to you soon. All right, and as always, keep crushing.